Hi! In this video, we bring to you some unique and tricky questions and their answers from some top company interviews like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft. Most of our questions will be based upon answers from real-life examples to give you a better idea about how you should answer these questions and nail this interview. So let's get started. Some important project management tips. Project manager's role is to manage projects completely. A project manager spends 90% of his time communicating. He needs to understand the project flow from beginning till end. He needs to identify risk and develop contingencies. He clearly needs to outline the critical path of the project. He needs to be flexible yet firm and also check egos at the door. We have divided our questions into 7 different categories: behavioral, scenario, experience, management, communication, experiment, and technical are a few of our categories so as to give you a wider exhibition. So click the bell icon below to subscribe for more videos. Behavioral assessment. Behavioral assessment is a psychological tool used to observe, describe, explain, and predict behavior. This is done to measure and calculate the various factors of behavioral changes, feelings, emotional intelligence, as well as cognitive ability, job-based knowledge, overt behaviors, and controlling variables of individuals. Behavioral interviewing uses strategically composed questions to share how a candidate's past performance might support a hiring company's future needs. Question number 1. Tell us about a time a coworker refused to do their part. When the employee continues to refuse to do their part, firstly, don't let them distract you and don't let it affect your attitude. Secondly, encourage your coworker. Later, if needed, state firmly that you are going to need that employee to take care of the work for you. If he or she simply doesn't complete the task, document the behavior and issue a written warning. Question number 2. How have you worked through ambiguity in the past? I have always dealt with ambiguity by remaining calm and trying to develop a concept about my goal and target, then later asking questions to attain clarity and information on the unclear subject. I usually assess my situations using the STAR methodology. Situation: my manager asked us to drive greater sales in the first week of launch. It wasn't specified what the marketing budget and target audience was. Task: I took this responsibility to ask my manager some important questions. Action: I explained to my manager how we needed more information to produce better results. Result: with the complete and extra information, we ended up driving more sales in the first week of launch using targeted advertisements. Scenario assessment. Scenario-based questions ask you to describe how you might respond to a hypothetical situation in the future. Scenario-based interview questions assess ethics, priorities, and much more. Question number 3. Can a good leader be a good manager and a good manager be a good leader? Or do you think that both, though linked, need separate and specific attributes? Have you seen good leaders or managers failing due to the lack of management or leadership attributes? This is an important but often ignored question. Decisions related to successors are often taken looking at managerial skills, keeping leadership at lower importance. Typically, while a person who is a good leader as well as manager would fit the bill, it is a bit difficult. The very reason is few things which makes a good leader contradicts a managerial ability. For example, task orientation versus people orientation. So you get people who are good at one and slightly weak in the other. In my long corporate career, I have observed that good leaders have a capability to delegate effectively, while good managers try to hold keys with them. Even if they delegate, they do task delegation. On the other hand, a good leader would be himself missing task details, deadlines, but he would often have second in line who would fill that space. Theoretically, it would be possible for a good manager also, but his very nature does not allow him to do so. Experience assessment. In an experience interview, the interviewee answers questions about his or her actions in a past employment situation. The interviewee demonstrates his or her skills and abilities by describing past achievements or experiences. These questions allow the hiring manager to assess whether or not a candidate for employment possesses the skills to handle situations and problems that will arise at the company and in the job for which the interviewee is being considered. Question number 4. What are the factors that affect the choice of project? Any project before being proposed will have to undergo these studies. Supply of raw material, whether seasonal product availability and bottlenecks. Market survey for the product. Manpower requirement. Other major heads of the project that eats up the investment or capital. Scope of the industry for next 15 years in terms of technical development and demand for the product. The financial statements to be prepared for the next 15 years. ROI should not be more than 7 years in a capital-intensive project. Based on these parameters, we can decide whether we implement the project or not. Question number 5. How do you use Scrum to improve project success? The Scrum model minimizes productive loss by creating teams that work well together and continue to do so. Over time, employees learn how best to collaborate and communicate with each other. This makes them better co-workers who are more productive, thus also improving project success scores too. The Scrum methodology has 6 steps to boost a team's productivity. Familiarize yourself with Scrum guides. Assign roles to your Scrum team. Create a product backlog. Conduct sprint planning and daily stand-up meetings. Define when a sprint is considered done. Review, reflect, and repeat. Question number 6. Describe a situation in which you went above and beyond to solve a problem for a team member. I was working as a customer service supervisor and helping a customer return an item. While working, I saw that a glass jar crashed onto the floor, and since I was the nearest staff member at the moment, I excused my customer and rushed to the spot of the crash. I stood there warning the shoppers to be aware of the bits of glass on the floor so that nobody would get hurt. As soon as another staff and maintenance team came into the scene, I went back and attended to my customer again while apologizing for the delay. Question number 7. Give me an example of when you had to think outside of the box. I once had to deal with the space issue in our warehouse. We arranged and rearranged several times and could not make it work. I thought outside the box and rented some outside pod storage until we were back to normal inventory levels. Question number 8. How do you prioritize competing projects? It's reasonably obvious that projects need to be prioritized because we cannot do everything or not all at the same time. Budget, talent, or both constrain most organizations. So a methodical process is required to determine what projects can be done to deliver the most value, given budget and resource constraints. There is a wide range of techniques that can help with this prioritization, and they will typically cover business objectives, financial analysis, risk, cost, and value. Question number 9. What will be the ideal project for you? Most of the candidates will definitely go for the project that they are hiring for. However, it will be better to be honest while going to answer this type of project manager interview questions during the interview. There will not be any such ideal project, but there may be some of the specific areas of work that you will like according to your organization. It will be better to go with your strong points and make sure that it is relevant to the organization where you are going to join as a project manager. Make sure to do some research and know about the type of projects that they will give you during your work. Question number 10. Tell me about a time when you created a unique idea or solution and it was rejected by your colleagues. How were you able to bounce back? An interviewer would like to know how you handle rejection when you present a solution at work. Putting yourself out there with new ideas can be intimidating, and we all want to be accepted. Talk to the interviewer about how you would handle the feelings that come with having your opinion rejected. I am often creating unique solutions or ideas in the workplace. Last year, we launched an employee satisfaction survey. After reading the results, it was clear to me the work that needed to take place. We needed to train our associates better and further equip our leaders with best practices to ensure their team's success. I suggested implementing them right away. Leadership rejected the idea, citing they wanted them to keep the process simple. We did end up implementing some of the ideas over time. It was a learning experience for me on how to better gain buy-in from my peers before introducing new ideas. Question number 11. Tell me about your typical relationship with project sponsors. Throughout my career, I've encountered many different kinds of sponsors. Sometimes they want to be very involved in the project and other times they don't. When I'm introduced to the sponsors at the beginning of the project, I try to determine their preferences and then communicate accordingly during the project. If a problem arises that my team and I are unable to resolve on our own, I would definitely reach out to the sponsor to get their thoughts. In many cases, the feedback that the project sponsor provides is extremely helpful. For many of the sponsors I worked with during larger projects, I scheduled weekly meetings or calls with them where I gave updates and discussed outstanding issues. Question number 12. Give me an example of a time when you successfully handled intense pressure. There's no doubt that there's a lot of stress and pressure in the life of a project manager. I personally reframe the stress and look at it positively. I like variety in my work life and many times enjoy the challenges that arise. I see them as puzzles for me to figure out as quickly and efficiently as possible. Within my last role, we were 2 weeks out from the deadline with a few critical issues still needing to be resolved when one of my key team members got very sick and had to be hospitalized. I knew that I had to fix this fast so the project would stay on track. I reassigned that person's high priority tasks to other team members I trusted and hired some freelance workers I had used in the past to handle his lower priority tasks. I kept tabs on everything, and in the end, we pulled it off and the project was completed successfully. Question number 13. What project management methodologies do you follow? I am familiar with and have used many different methodologies in the past, including waterfall, critical path, critical chain, scrum, adaptive, and event chain. I would likely list even more. There are obviously many to choose from, but in general, I always consider the PMBOK in every project I run and rely on its best practices. Waterfall is also a methodology I commonly follow because of how straightforward and linear it is, especially when I'm in charge of a project that is highly structured. While I'm working with a smaller team in the software development realm, I'm more apt to employ the Scrum methodology. I am comfortable using many different methodologies. I decide which one to use based on the type, size, and cost of the project. Question number 14. Do you prefer to handle things yourself or to delegate to others? I have learned throughout the years that I simply can't do everything myself, but I can establish high standards that I expect from my team to meet and exceed. So I start by assembling good teams that are filled with people who are smart and enthusiastic. Then I lay out my expectations for each of them using project management software and clearly communicate these to them. Finally, I trust them to complete their task but provide guidance along the way if they need it. I also continually monitor everyone's progress using the software, so if anyone does slack or fall behind, I can discuss this with them and develop a short-term action plan to resolve the issue. Question number 15. How would your previous stakeholders and team members describe you as a leader? If you were to ask my colleagues about my leadership style, they'd say that I am an empathic facilitator. I try to always be sensitive to everyone's needs from project sponsors, stakeholders, and other co-workers. They would say that I do my best to get them all the resources they need to get their jobs done. I'm also the glue that keeps everyone together and keeps the morale up. They'd also say that I'm the person they'd go to first whenever a fire starts and trust me to put it out. Question number 16. What was the best innovation you ever came up with in your professional life? My first project management role was as part of the continuous improvement team at a call center. I was tasked to optimize processes between the sales center and customer care teams. Each team was using their own system separate from each other. Customers would call the sales number even though they already had an existing order. The sales representative would then have to transfer the call by dialing out to the care team. This resulted in longer handling time for sales, which negatively impacted their stats and commissions, and customers frustrated from having to state their problem twice. I had a two-part solution. The first part was to optimize the interactive voice response to pre-qualify callers and ensure they get routed to customer care if they had an existing order and are not looking to add or modify that order. The second part was to build a sub-team within customer care that processed these calls. As a result, the sales team's average handling time went down substantially, and we had 30% fewer complaints from the customers about the transfer time. Question number 17. What do you do to ensure your project is on or below budget? In my experience, planning beats mitigating when it comes to budgets. It's always best to overproject the budget at the beginning by accounting for common budget overrun culprits like longer than expected labor hours or unforeseen changes. This way, I have a plan B or plan C when they do come up. When they end up worse than projected, I can inform stakeholders as soon as I identify the risk. At the beginning of the project, you don't know what you don't know, so the best I can do is look at similar projects and prepare a plan for the worst case scenario. Management assessment. Management interview questions are used to assess candidates' team leading skills in these important roles. Question number 18. What is your definition of team? A team becomes more than just a collection of people when a strong sense of mutual commitment creates synergy, thus generating performance greater than the sum of the performance of its individual members. One of the many ways for a business to organize employees is in teams. A team is made up of two or more people who work together to achieve a common goal. Effective teams can lead to an increase in employee motivation and business productivity. Question number 19. You are going to miss tomorrow's deadline. How do you and your team members handle it? The minute you realize this, you set expectations accordingly, ask for assistance, and determine the best approach for delivery. While one of the options might be to work throughout the night, in my experience, this is when the most bugs start appearing. And it's also when the quality of the result suffers. In many cases, the date itself is pulled out of thin air, but is set as an immovable object for political reasons. Question number 20. How will you manage a change request with the proper handling? It is a very normal thing in any company to find the requirement of any kind of specific change in the final project or product. In this situation, the manager of the project will need to handle the change request in the proper way. First of all, it is needed to analyze the situation and the possibility of the required changes in the project. There may be some of the specific things that you can easily change while you may need to waste lots of time and money for some of the other changes. The estimation of the final project and cost will also depend on when you are going to face such a request. Question number 21. How do you provide status at different management levels? Any tool you have used? In this type of project manager interview questions, time is to evaluate your management skill to demonstrate the project progress. It will also judge if you know what level of details should be communicated at different levels as well as to different stakeholders. Reporting is one form of communication. Communication management and stakeholders management are two areas where a project manager spends maximum time. The answer should focus on your understanding of communication needs and stakeholders' understanding. Examples from your past experience about some tough project manager will help. Experiment assessment. Experiment-based questions are asked to assess the problem solving, evaluating, measuring abilities, and also the candidate's ability to work within a time frame. Question number 22. How would you design a children's alarm clock? Before proceeding towards design making, the manager and team needs to decide on a few points and list down the information. Is this a physical product? Is this a long-term or single project? Discuss the metrics of the company. Identify customers, their pain points, use cases, and business goals. And later work along with the team based upon these guidelines so as to achieve the design target. Communication assessment. Asking communication skills interview questions allows interviewers to determine if someone has basic language comprehension, can communicate both verbally and non-verbally, and can communicate with different people in different situations. Question number 23. How should a project manager communicate a failure to their team? Communicating a failure needs courage and should never be hidden under the carpet or delayed. If there is any good news, then communicate the good news first and then the bad news. While communicating failure, start with a positive note on what was done by the team, how much you valued their contribution, show them your empathy, appreciate all of their hard work, communicate what has gone wrong this time, what actions have been taken to resolve the issue swiftly. The team might get upset, so take complete responsibility on yourselves and don't play the blame game. Be candid in communication to the team. Be prepared to take the questions and assume responsibility. If required, apologize. Building the relationship and credibility among the team is critical, so always listen to the team and show more confidence on how you would collaborate with them to get out of this situation. Share the management perspective and show the commitment on what action plans are in place. Prepare to deliver such failures, and handling it in a sensible way will improve your confidence level and project yourself in a positive way. Technical skills assessment. Interviewers ask technical questions to learn your skill levels, how you calculate the burn rate in a project, and how you process information. They need to assess your knowledge about project planning, forecasting, risk management, and budgeting. Also about the different methodologies involved in project management. Question number 24. What are the steps you take to assess the risk of a project? How do you work to manage them over the project's lifetime? Five steps of the risk management process are: identify the risk. The first step is to identify the risk that the business is exposed to in its operating environment. Analyze the risk. Evaluate or rank the risk. Treat the risk. Monitor and review the risk. The 9 risk management steps that will keep your project on track are: create a risk register. Create a risk register for your project in a spreadsheet. Identify the risk. Identify opportunities. Determine likelihood and impact or delays it might cause. Determine the response. Estimation of the cost to prevent each risk. Assign owners. Regularly review the risk. Report on risk. Question number 25. How do you motivate team members? Some ways to motivate your team members are: share the organizational vision with each member. Communicate with your staff. Make people feel appreciated. Support new ideas. Give challenging tasks. Encourage creativity. Give each one opportunities to grow. Empower each individual.